The symbiote suit is one of the most iconic designs in pop culture. Originating from the famous cover of the 8th issue of Secret Wars in 1984, the symbiote suit has given us some of the best memes in Marvel movies.
So good.
So I think it'd be really cool to brew Symbiote Spider-Man, a blue and black commander that lets you consider equal to the number of damage you dealt to a player. And the really cool thing is if Symbiote Spider-Man is dead and in your graveyard, you can activate its ability and graft the symbiote onto another creature you control and pass on its ability, which I think is a really flavorful way to represent how symbiotes work in the Marvel lore. Yo, rookie, I got like a super big idea. Oh, sure. What is it? Okay, hear me out. What if you symbiotes onto your opponent's commanders? Good idea. Oh, that's actually a really cool idea, but I feel like our opponents will get mad about it. Oh, everything makes commander players mad. You should just do whatever you want. When it comes to stealing stuff, I think you should play these cards. Aether Snatch, which is like a really flashy way to steal a spell off the stack. Super cool. People love it. And X spells like Blue Sun's Twilight, Dominate, or Entrancing Melody to take a creature with lesser mana value. Super direct spells. Govern the Gateless lets you nab a single color creature, which is also really oppressive for single color commander decks, but you know, they're already super weak, so like who cares what happens to them, right? Invoke the Wind steals a thing or an artifact, I don't know, who cares. Tempted by the Orc can steal a ton of things as long as they're cheap. And my personal favorite, the Trickster God's Heist, which lets us swap 2 creatures for a pretty cheap cost. And because you're stealing people's stuff, you're gonna draw removal from the person you stole it from, which I think is super funny, but you gotta play around that, right? So you should play some protection spells like Champion's Helm, Change of Plans, Ripples of Potential, and Slip Out the Back. That's like the politics part, you do the rest. For the rest of the deck, I think it'd be really cool if we could make it kind of a tempo control deck.
Why are you all looking in my general direction?
Because, dummy, this is where you come in with your big brain deck building.
I actually have a lot of work to do, and you can build good decks yourself, designer, so you've got this.
Alright, I guess first I'll just define tempo. When we play a tempo deck, we really just want to play a threat and play cantrips.
Stop. Alright, fine. Can't believe I got roped into this. So this Symbiote Spider-Man card lends itself to what's generally understood as a tempo play pattern. Because as long as you connect with Symbiote Spider-Man, he gives you more resources via the card draw and also helps you dig for something relevant. So Rookie's initial parallel to consider is pretty spot on. But let's talk about tempo overall as a strategy, because it's the most misunderstood and misdefined term probably in all of Magic the Gathering. And I'm sure the comment section is going to be really normal about this. So tempo is basically a deck that can shift between aggro and control pretty quickly, and wants to play a small, lean game where you can play cards like Counterspell or Lightning Bolt to clear the way for your threats to close the game. It's not quite as controlling as hard control and not quite as aggressive as a pure aggro deck. It's something in between, right? It's very flexible that way. And tempo classically plays a lot of cantrips like Opt, Preordain, Ponder, and Consider. Because since you're playing a small game, right? Being able to dig for the right card for the role you're playing at the moment is really important. Got that? So, if we apply this thinking of tempo being aggro control, you'd make the assumption that playing a Voltron strategy backed up by counterspells would be good enough. But the one thing that's really important to keep in mind here is the issue of scale, which makes tempo a tougher nut to crack in Commander.
Senpai's getting really into this. Yeah, like they can't help themselves. It's like the easiest bait in the world. Yeah, Senpai really likes cards.
When you have one opponent attacking with 1 or 2 threats, with 1 or 2 card draw per turn might be good enough. When you have 3 opponents, it throws our whole valuation off, which especially matters for a strategy that is all about manipulating effective value on the table, thus manipulating the tempo of the game, right? If our opponent plays a big creature, and if we bounce it with a cheap spell, we've negated some tempo from our opponent. We haven't gained any tempo, we need a threat. But that's the general idea, right? So when we're talking about scale, it means 2 things. We need engines that help replenish our cards at a greater rate than 1 card per turn, like a trail of evidence that can tack on clues to our cantrips, or what's it called? Wave Break Hippocamp that can help our cards replace themselves each time we cast them on our opponent's turn. That fairy card, I think it's called Nimrus. Nimrus also achieves the same goal here, and we want to play that. Fairy Mastermind can generate a lot of cards if our opponents are also playing draw effects, and since draw is basically one of the main tenets of the Commander religion, I would assume Fairy Mastermind will draw you cards. And a personal favorite of mine, Ledger Shredder is also a fantastic add to a deck like this, because there's 3 times the potential for the Connive trigger to help us loot for the right answer, because we care a lot about card quality here. And also, Ledger Shredder can easily double up as a threat, which brings up to the second point about scale. It's how we end the game. Since we're playing a lot of cantrips and spells in general, we basically want to maximize their value by leveraging cast triggers. And when it comes to helping us finish the game, playing cards like Metallurgic Summonings, Murmuring Mystic, or Talran Sky Summoner can help convert our spells into a go-wide strategy, which generally does pretty good in Commander. And as a pivot, there's also Runechanter's Pike or Prof's Eidetic Memory to help grow our main threat, and also gives us that axis of winning the game via a more Voltron-like strategy as well. Now we have 2 ways to win that synergizes with the overall structure of how we normally would build a deck like this. And the last note on scale is something like Counterbalance also scales really well on multiplayer, since as soon as it hits more than once, your Counterbalance has rewarded you with more interaction than your usual one-use counterspell. It probably won't hit exactly the way you need it to hit, the same way as a counterspell does, but it's a good kind of piece of interaction in general to just help negate some cards. Not literally negate, targets only non-creature spells. Oh, and I guess one last thing, since I overheard you all talking about this, we should play Boseiju to make sure your expensive theft spells definitely resolve. You think you can finish this off now, kid?
For the rest of the deck, I think we should play a variety of counterspells like An Offer You Can't Refuse, Counterspell, Disdainful Stroke for a hard counter on a lot of big mana targets in Commander, Flare of Denial, which can help sacrifice our Symbiote Spider-Man, Mystic Confluence, which can flexibly be card draw, counterspells, or removal, and also negate. For cantrips, we have Brainstorm and Consider, but also we should be playing draw effects that help put Symbiote Spider-Man into the graveyard, like Eviscerator's Insight, Fanatical Offering, or Nasty End. Dig Through Time is also a really good spell to help us dig for answers, and Deep Analysis can be pitched into the graveyard by Symbiote Spider-Man to be flashbacked later. For removal, Drown in the Loch can be a counterspell or creature removal. Flare of Malice is another good way to sacrifice our commander, but also force each opponent to sacrifice the greatest mana value planeswalker or creature. March of Swirling Mists can help phase out a bunch of creatures temporarily, while Rapid Hybridization and Reality Shift are good targeted creature removal. There's also one Toxic Deluge to help wipe the board. And since we want Symbiote Spider-Man to go to the graveyard, it's totally okay that they get caught in the Toxic Deluge as well. So altogether, I think this Symbiote Spider-Man deck can be a really cool tempo deck that works well on its own, but also with the added strategy of stealing our opponent's creatures or commanders and venomizing them with our commander's ability, which makes it a really flavorful and fun deck to play. Yo, this deck is sick. Can you spot me the deck?
You got money to pay?
Yo, why you always gotta make me pay for stuff in the store?
It's a free country, but not a free deck country.
Yo, you should watch this Edge of Eternity Commanders deck with the Spaceship Boy. Or, if you like our vibe, you can also watch our gameplay episode right here. It's cool, I get to team up with Senpai, and you'd have a blast, I know you will. Alright, it's good to see y'all. I'm gonna do the Spider-Man dance.